Hello everyone and welcome to the Bodhi Academy. My name is Prachi Naik and this is our series of one-shot videos. In today's video, I'll be covering 10th standard NCERT Science chapter, Chemical Reactions and Equations. So, first of all, I want to ask you all, have you all ever seen milk changing into curd, or food getting cooked, or iron getting rusted? So, these all are chemical reactions. So, today we'll see how all these things are, how exactly all these things are. Okay, so first we'll see what is a chemical reaction. So it is a process in which one or more substances are converted into new substances. For example, magnesium plus oxygen will give magnesium oxide. So here magnesium and oxygen are reactants. So both of these will react with each other to give a product called as magnesium oxide. Okay, so now when we are writing a chemical reaction, we cannot directly again and again we cannot write it in sentences. Okay, so we have to use some symbols. So this will be chemical reaction, chemical equation. So in chemical equation, it is a symbolic representation of a chemical reaction using chemical formula. Okay, so first example which we had taken was magnesium and magnesium plus oxygen. So here the chemical symbol of magnesium is Mg, and then chemical symbol of oxygen will be O2, which will give us magnesium oxide, which is MgO. Okay, so this is chemical equation. Now we'll see how to balance a chemical equation. So according to law of conservation of mass can neither be created nor be destroyed. Okay, so according to that, both the sides should have, in a reaction, both the sides should have equal number of atoms. Okay, so here magnesium, so first we'll see this reaction. Okay, magnesium here is 1 plus oxygen is 2, which will give magnesium oxide. But here the number of atoms is magnesium is 1. So here it is balanced, but if we see the number of atoms of oxygen, it is 2 here. Okay, so what we'll have to do is, here I have written the balanced equation. So first we'll see the number of atoms here. So oxygen is 2 here. Okay, so what we have to do is, we have to add a 2 here also on the product side. Okay, so now we have added a 2, and whenever we add a number to balance the equation, we have to add it in the front. Okay, so here we have added 2. Now here the number of oxygen is 2, but the number of magnesium is also increased. So here also we have to add a 2. So this is how we balance the equation. Okay, now when we write the equation, we'll also have to add physical states of that chemical equation. So physical states, like it will tell us the form of that particular element or the compound which we are using. For example, so we have to use some symbols for the type of the physical state, like S symbol will be given for a solid state. Okay, L will be given for liquid state, G will be given for gaseous state, and AQ is given for aqueous state. So aqueous state meaning when the chemical is dissolved in water. Okay, so example here is zinc plus HCl will give zinc chloride plus hydrogen. Okay, so zinc here is a liquid and HCl it is in aqueous, it is in aqueous form. Okay, then zinc chloride, again this is also in aqueous form, and hydrogen it is a gas, so we'll add a G in front of it. Okay, then now we'll see the types of chemical reactions. Okay, so there are 7 types of chemical reactions. Okay, first is the combination reaction. So in combination reaction, 1 or 2 elements react with each other to form a single product. Okay, so here the example is calcium oxide plus water will give us calcium hydroxide. Okay, then we come to second type of chemical reaction, which is decomposition reaction. So here calcium carbonate, one compound will break to give simpler substances. Okay, for example, calcium carbonate here will break down into calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide. Okay, Then the third type of chemical reaction is displacement reaction. Here more reactive substance will replace the less reactive substances or chemical. Okay, for example here zinc plus copper sulfate is these are the reactants and the product is zinc sulfate plus copper. So here copper sulfate, copper is replaced by zinc, which is a more reactive metal. Okay, then there is double displacement. In displacement only one chemical or one metal was changing here, but here both the metals will change. For example here there will be exchange of ions between the two compounds. Okay, so example here is sodium sulfate plus barium chloride will give barium sulfate plus sodium chloride. Okay, so here first it was sodium sulfate which will become barium sulfate and barium chloride will become sodium chloride. Okay, now next one is oxidation and reduction. In oxidation there is addition of oxygen and removal of hydrogen. Okay, example of oxidation reaction is magnesium plus oxygen. So when there is addition of oxygen to magnesium, it will give magnesium oxide. This is a type of oxidation reaction. Okay, so the next one is reduction. Here there will be removal of oxygen and addition of hydrogen. So example here is copper oxide plus hydrogen will give copper plus water. Okay, so this is a type of reduction reaction. Now when both of this reaction will happen, that is oxidation, when oxidation and reduction will happen, this will be called as a redox reaction. So reduction plus oxygen both will happen together. Next is exothermic and endothermic reactions. So in exothermic there will be release of heat. For example combustion of fuel, meaning when we burn a fuel there is a release of heat. Then endothermic, here it is absorption of the heat. So for example photosynthesis. So in photosynthesis the light energy, also the heat, it is absorbed here. Okay, next is precipitation reaction. So in precipitation reaction a new substance is formed which is insoluble, that is it doesn't dissolve in the solution. Okay, so here the example is silver nitrate plus sodium chloride will give silver chloride, which is a white precipitate. So here the insoluble substance will be called as a precipitate which doesn't dissolve in the solution, plus sodium nitrate. Then now when the chemical reaction happens, how we will get to know if it has happened or not? For that there will be some changes which will happen in the reaction. Okay, so for the changes which will happen are change in color, then there will be formation of gas, also there will be formation of precipitate, and there will be change in temperature. It will, the product, the reaction, it will become little bit warm. Okay, so that will be change in temperature, and it can be, and there can be change in state also, like from solid to liquid state. Okay, then the effects of oxidation in everyday life. Okay, so oxidation was addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. Okay, so here first is corrosion. So in corrosion there will be when the metals will react with the factors of the environment like air, moisture or water. Okay, so example here is iron plus oxygen plus water will give iron oxide, that is the rust. So one example of corrosion is rusting. Then how can this corrosion can be prevented? Okay, one is painting. So it will form a protective layer on the metal which will protect it from the water or the air. Okay, then greasing, here also greasing or oiling. So here also there will be a layer on the metals which will protect it from the outer environment. Then there is galvanization. So here there will be a protective layer of will coat the metal with a layer of zinc. Okay, so then there is rancidity. Here there will be oxidation of fats and oils. Okay, so here the examples are when there is oxidation of chips, butter or oil. So how this can be prevented now? We can store the food in refrigerators, or we can keep them in airtight containers. Okay, so this is it for today's video. Hope you all have understood. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Bodhi Academy. Thank you.